welcome back to part 3 of my Raising Kids video series. I know this last video has been kind of a long time in coming, and I apologize for that. I've had some health issues and some technical problems that have prevented me from being able to get this out to you sooner. But I'm glad you're here. I'm glad you're watching. And this is going to be kind of a long video because I'm going to talk about milk sharing, and there's just a lot of things to consider going into that. And I will say, when I first started out with goats, this was also one of the topics that I struggled finding a lot of input on, and I was already familiar with dairy animals. I had already milked cows. We had done milk sharing with our cows and calves, so I was already kind of familiar with that concept. But this is something that can be kind of daunting for somebody who's just starting out and who has not had any experience with dairy animals. So I'm just going to give you some points to consider, and I know I keep saying this, but once again, it's the most important thing you can do is just observe your herd, take careful observations of them, pay attention to them, and come up with your own strategy that works best for you and your goats. Everybody kind of has a different way of doing this, and I've actually done milk sharing a little bit. I've actually done milk sharing a little bit differently each time that I have done it, just depending on the goat and what her needs were, and the babies and what their needs were. But basically, what milk production is in a goat is you've got a lot of things playing into it. You've got genetics, you've got the feed and overall health of the goat, and then you've also got the conditioning and kind of training that you have put into them to help them produce to the maximum of their ability. Obviously, not all goats are going to be amazing dairy goats if they just don't have the genetics for it, or if there's some health factor that's keeping them from being able to produce well. But I think when you're dam raising your goat kids and you are doing milk sharing, you really are kind of setting yourself up for helping your doe to naturally boost her production as much as she possibly can and produce to the best of her ability with the genetics and the feeding and the health that she has. So, hi baby. He's at the age where he gets offended when I kiss him, and it's so hilarious. Milk sharing, as the name implies, is you sharing milk with the kid or kids from your doe. There's a lot of ways that you can do this. Many people just let the doe feed her kids and let them drink whatever they like and just don't mess with it, milking her at all until after they're weaned. Other people will only milk out whatever is extra and left over from the kids, again until weaning. I actually like to do about a 50-50 split with the kids, and that has worked quite well for me so far. So typically I will just let the doe nurse her kids as much as she wants, as much as they want, for about the first week to 2 weeks. I like them to make sure that they get all of that colostrum. I like to make sure that they get into the habit of nursing, and that they're vigorous and that they're healthy. And that is not to say that I won't milk her at all during that time. As a matter of fact, I will probably begin milking her once or twice a day, starting from when the kids are anywhere between 12 and 24 hours old, because many does will actually get so full of milk that their udders get tight and hard, and it's actually very difficult for the kids to latch on to the teats because of the tension in the udder. So it's actually beneficial to milk early on, starting out. But I will not separate the kids during that time. And that first milk and colostrum that I get, I will often save that in the freezer in case I would have an orphan kid at some point that did not get enough colostrum, and I could pull that out and I'd feed that to the kids. So that's a really useful thing to have on hand. Or if I have a kid that's a little bit weak and I'm not sure if they've gotten all their colostrum, I'll milk the dough and then bottle feed that back to the kid a couple of times just to make sure that they've gotten it. Usually by the time the kids are about a week old, they are draining the dough of all of her milk that she is producing. So I'll get her up on the milking stand and I will only get, you know, a few little squirts out and that's it. And at that point, that's when I start separating the kids from the dough overnight. And usually by that time, they're also getting pretty active and independent, and they're starting to sample food and things like that. And so it's really not traumatic for them to be separated overnight. I give them their own little private house. They get their own hay, their own mineral feeder. I have a little igloo house set up for them that they love. And, you know, they just have their own little cozy space. So, you know, that's a good time to introduce them to grain and just handle them and love on them and give them some one-on-one attention when they're separated from their mom. I like to keep them within sight of their mothers so that they and their mom can kind of keep tabs on each other through the night. However, this past year I did not have the setup to be able to do that, and everybody was fine. They were fine. They would holler a little bit at first and then they'd settle down and go to sleep, and after a few days they kind of got in the routine and they did just fine being separated. So I will separate the kids at night, milk the dough. There usually isn't much milk left because those kids see me coming and very quickly learn to nurse when they see me coming out in the evening, and so there won't be much left. But I like to make sure that her udder is empty at night, and then in the morning I will milk her. And depending on the nature of the dough and how many kids she is raising, Josie's breathing in my ear. You may want to milk her all the way out, or you may want to leave a little bit for the kids to drink. You want to make sure that the kids do not tear up her udder. Some does are just way too patient with their kids, and they will just stand there and let that kid like beat on their udder, bash it around, cause all kinds of bruising and trauma. If that's the case, and if you have a very aggressive kid that's very aggressive about eating, you may want to leave a little bit of milk in there just so that the kid has something to eat and they're not just beating around on your dough's udder. If she is more assertive and not going to let the kids get away with that, you can just go ahead and milk her out, and then, you know, she'll start filling up again almost immediately after you milk her, and, you know, then the kids will be able to get a good drink in another hour or two. That's where, you know, again, observation is really important. Keeping track of them and just seeing how the kids are acting and how the dough is acting are really important. Basically what you're doing is by emptying out her udder twice a day, you're stimulating her to produce more milk, because having an empty udder is what tells her body, hey, you're not producing enough, you know, you need to produce more milk here. And then having the kids nursing on her throughout the day is also a continual stimulation, again, telling her body, hey, you know, we need more milk. So basically you're sort of gently encouraging her to produce as much as she possibly can. And also with the overnight separation, you are kind of stretching her udder and stretching out her teats. You don't want her to get so full that she's tight. Her udder is tight and hard and uncomfortable. But you do want her udder to be kind of filled, because that skin becomes very elastic when she first freshens, especially the first 1 or 2 times that a dough freshens. And so her skin is stretchy, and so you want it to be full so it kind of expands outwards, and so she has the udder capacity to be a gallon a day or 2 gallon a day milk, or whatever her genetic potential is. You want her to be able to fulfill that potential. You also, when the udder is full, it also puts some pressure on the teats. Again, you don't want too much pressure, but a little bit of pressure is good because it will help her teats to stretch and be longer, and so that she can be easy to milk and she doesn't have little tiny short teats that are hard to get a hold of. The thing that I like about milking every day from the very outset is that I am going to notice any udder issues that may pop up very, very quickly. If her milk supply isn't what it should be, I'm going to notice that. If she has mastitis starting up or a congested udder, I'm going to notice that. I've seen so many times when people who are just letting their goats and kids do whatever and not really keeping track of it, don't realize they have an issue until they have kids that are starving, they have a doe that's really sick from mastitis, and it's like all of a sudden, oh shoot, you know, we have this problem and we've got kids dying or whatever. You can avoid all of that by getting that doe up on the milking stand once or twice a day, getting your hands on the udder, watching, you know, what she's doing, watching how the kids act, watching if they seem hungry. You can weigh your kids every day. A lot of people do that. I don't, because I feel pretty confident that I can judge just by looking at them whether or not they're getting enough to eat. But if you don't feel confident doing that, if it's your first time and you don't really know what you're looking for, get them on the scale every day. Weigh them. They should be gaining some weight. You know, if they're not gaining weight, figure out what's going on with your goat. A few things that you might want to watch out for with milk sharing is if you have a doe who is a very low producer and she's got, you know, a bunch of kids on her, you know, you may want to just watch that. Again, weigh the kids, you know, every day or every week to make sure that they're gaining weight, just in case she doesn't have enough milk for them. And if she doesn't have enough milk for them and you both, you know, you may want to leave them together and, you know, only just milk out whatever they don't take at the end of the day or something like that. If she has a small or a weak kid that struggles to get enough to eat, you know, you might want to milk her out first in the morning and give that kid a bottle, so that you know, they have something to eat before their siblings get in there. Or you might want to just let that kid nurse for a few minutes in the morning before you milk, just so that they can get a chance to get some breakfast and get some food. So there's just lots of ways that you can adapt, again, by just watching and observing your animals. But I would say, at least in my experience, a normal doe producing roughly a gallon a day with twins, they're going to have plenty of milk for me and for their kids with milk sharing the way that I have done it. Every doe is a little bit different as well. They will actually oftentimes hold back milk for their kids. So if you have a doe that does that, you can just milk her until she doesn't have any milk coming out anymore, and then but if you watch, you may see her when you put her in with her kids, you may see them actually being able to nurse and getting some milk out of her. So you can kind of experiment with that, and I will show you what that looks like as well, so you can kind of get a visual. Honestly though, the best thing you can do is just to watch the kids and watch the doe, watch if they're being really rough with her when you put them back together, if they're acting really hungry, if they're acting super starved and they're really beating up on her udder. You know, maybe leave a little milk for them next time, or maybe milk into a bottle and give them a bottle if you've introduced a bottle when they're young, which can be a really good idea to introduce a bottle those first couple of days, just so in case something would happen that you wouldn't be able to let them nurse on their mom anymore, that a bottle wouldn't be such a foreign concept to them. So Syl is about 5 months fresh. She freshened in the beginning of March, so actually I guess closer to 6 months fresh. It's been about 2 months since she weaned her last kid, so she is not feeding kids anymore. But she does still hold back milk in her udder, and I'm going to show you what that looked like. When she was feeding her kids, she would actually hold back even more milk than she's doing right now, but she does still hold back some, and I'm going to show you what I do about that. So I'm almost to the end here, as you can see, not getting a whole lot out. Okay, she's dry. So I'm gonna massage her udder with my thumbs. Just take them up here, do this nice little circling motion. And then I'm gonna get a lot more milk out. She could hold back almost a quart of milk when she had her kids on her. Now she's not holding back that much. She's holding back maybe a pint, probably not even quite a pint, but still a pretty substantial amount of milk. So I hope that was helpful to you. As you can see, the milk not coming out anymore does not mean that your goat does not have more milk in their udder. And so you can either choose to leave that last little bit of milk for the kids if they're still nursing, or you can choose to milk it out. I would recommend the first couple times that you milk to massage that udder and milk her completely dry until there is no more milk coming out. After you massage that second time or third time, however many times it takes, just to give you an idea of how much milk your goat is actually producing and how much is in there. Because that's a really useful thing for you to know, and it's useful for you to know how much milk you're leaving for your kids if you choose to leave milk in the udder. Some goats may hold back a lot of milk, some may not hold back any at all. It really just depends on the individual goat. But it never hurts to just do a massage on that udder and see what all is in there. Because what you don't want to do is you don't want to have a goat who's not feeding her kids anymore holding back that much milk in their udder, because that's going to eventually end up damaging their milk production if you're not getting them completely milked out. They're going to drop their production. It's really good to make sure that you get everything out that you can. So I hope that that was a helpful visual for you to kind of see what I was talking about there with the goats holding the milk back. Some of the issues that can arise from dam raising your kids can also really be mitigated by milk sharing. One of the ones that I have faced is when I had a single kid, and single kids will sometimes pick one side of the udder that they like to nurse out of, and they'll just only nurse out of that one side, and so then the other side gets really engorged for a while, and then if you don't do anything about it, it will just eventually kind of quit producing milk because it's not being nursed out. And so if you're milking that other side of the udder out every day, you can definitely help keep that udder from getting so lopsided. And you can also teach the kid to nurse on the other side. Whenever you're out there, if you see them nursing, pull them off and put them on the other side. Let them know that, hey, there's two sides to this thing. You should really be nursing the other side. I have a doe right now whose first pregnancy she had a single, and he liked the one side more than the other. But because I was there and I was milking her out twice a day, every day, her udder is not lopsided anymore. It could have easily become a very lopsided udder, but to look at her now, you would never guess that that had happened during her first freshening, because I was there and I was correcting it. So I really appreciate you guys taking time to watch these videos. I really hope that they were helpful to you. I don't have all the answers, but I hope that I've at least shared some information points that will help you in doing your own research and making your own observations for your own herd. And I am planning to share more just about my own herd and the things that I'm doing with here. We're going to be going into breeding season soon, so I have 3 yearlings that I'm going to be breeding this year. So I'm planning to walk you through that whole process and just show you the breeding, the pregnancies, training them to the milk stand, milk sharing with their kids, all of that. I'm very excited about that process, going through that this year with 3 of my yearlings that were born here and grew up here. So they're really special to me. So I'm definitely excited to share more on that, and I'll keep you all posted. Thanks for watching, and happy herding with your goats.